Please call the medic, this beat came to me on a stretcher. In the lab, I step to the mic and feel like I'm Dexter. I'm a man, dark world, but I'm still shining like treasure. Yeah, I got joy like ha ha ha. Wait, and I can't wear smiles, that's fake. Then I'm between love and strong. Hate clock says no time for mistakes. Ring the alarm, sirens go off, but I'm calm. My life resides in his palm. Submit to my pops, respect for my mom. Honoring both, so my life will be long. Third time, get the charm of the third strike. Had to.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Trucking with Old Snapper, and I am Old Snapper. I'm gonna take a little cruise here. My window mount here in my personal car sucks, so it'll probably be bouncing around quite a bit, and I apologize for that. If you're new to the channel, smash that like and subscribe button. It helps me out, helps the channel out, and I really do appreciate that. And it's free, doesn't cost a thing. Can you trust a trucking YouTuber? Someone on YouTube telling you about a company or whatever, trying to recruit you or whatever it may be. And there's so many factors that go into this. I don't think people think it all the way through sometimes, but there's a lot of factors that go into this. Is this the person trying to recruit you, or are they just telling you about their company? You know, they're talking about what they make and all that kind of stuff, vlogging kind of sort of in a way, you know, comparing it to companies they've worked at, things like that, you know, because there is a difference. Some YouTubers get on with the intent of trying to get you to come to their company. Well, when they do that, you're basically talking to a recruiter one-sided without your input, you know, so that can be difficult because they can kind of control which direction you're thinking and different things like that, right? Another thing that has to be taken into consideration is what's the experience of the YouTuber you're listening to? What companies have they worked at? Because if they're telling you a company is good, they're obviously comparing it to their experience in the industry. So let's take Joy of Trucking, for example. Now, I like Joy of Trucking, don't get me wrong. Nothing bad on that channel at all. I've talked about them before on this channel. They're a really good channel. Guy works over at Crete. And Crete is a good company. But let's say I didn't know anything about Crete, and I was just watching Joy of Trucking and his daily adventures and his opinions on Crete carriers. I would need to know Joy of Trucking's experience. The only other company Joy of Trucking's ever worked for is Warner Enterprises. You can compare just about any company to Warner Enterprises. There's not a whole lot of them out here that are going to be worse. You know, so knowing that, I know that his experience level is limited. His opinion of Crete being a good company is comparing it to Warner Enterprises. And let's face it, Stevens Transport was good compared to Warner Enterprises, and Stevens Transport sucked. You see what I'm saying? So let's say he didn't work at Crete Carriers, because I've worked at Crete, and Crete's a good company. Let's say Joy of Trucking was working at Decker Truck Lines. Decker Truck Lines is going to appear to be great compared to Warner Trucking. I worked at Decker Truck Lines, so I know that. They're going to appear to be great compared to Warner Enterprises. But is Decker Trucking as good as Crete Carriers? No, they're not. In my opinion, having worked at both companies, Crete Carriers is a better company. But if Joy of Trucking was at Decker Truck Lines and the only other company he had worked at was Warner Enterprises, he'd be telling you how great Decker Truck Lines is, and it's the end-all be-all trucking companies, right? Again, because he's just comparing it to his experience, his or her experience, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but whoever's watching needs to understand that. The YouTuber's experience level needs to be taken into consideration when you're looking at that. Another good example of that is Alex the Trucker, I believe is his name. Really new to the industry. I watched a video of him the other day, and he was talking about his truck, and he stops his truck, he turns on the opti-idle, then he goes to the back and he turns on his EPU. That's E as in echo. All right, but in the video he says it's nice to have an APU. Alex is so new to trucking that he doesn't know the difference between an EPU and an APU. Nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with that at all. But the audience needs to take that in consideration whenever they're taking into consideration advice he may be giving them, because he is that new to the industry. Now, he started at Variant US Express. Now he works at GP Transco. I don't know a whole lot about GP Transco. I do know that Variant and US Express are not all that great. Because I worked at US Express, which owns Variant. As a matter of fact, the least amount of money I ever made driving a truck was at US Express. And not by a little bit, but by a lot. That was literally the lowest money I ever made driving a truck, by a long shot. You get to really liking who you're watching. You get to know them a little bit. You get to know a little bit about who they are and their families and stuff like that, you know, and you kind of build a little bit of a bond with them. So, and I think that blinds people sometimes into taking into consideration the facts and the truth. That's like Alex. Alex is a really good dude, has a really good channel, but he is very new to trucking. When he's talking about GP Transco, I have to take that into consideration, right? I have to take into consideration the fact this guy is really new to trucking. Like, he doesn't know the difference between an EPU and an APU. And for those of you out there that might be watching the channel and wonder, well, hell, what's the difference? You know, because there's a lot of people that don't drive trucks that watch trucking YouTube channels as well. An APU is a separate motor back there. It's like a two-cycle engine. Tri-Pack makes them, Carrier makes them. You'll see them sometimes when they park next to you. You get that little box right behind their sleeper. It's normally on the passenger side. And it sounds like a lawnmower engine going off all night long. That's an APU, A as an apple, auxiliary power unit. An EPU, electric power unit, is a battery pack. Normally it's either under the sleeper or behind the sleeper underneath the catwalk, and it'll be a pack of batteries. It's like 6 or 9 of them, something like that, all connected up. But when you drive throughout the day, it charges those batteries up. And then whenever you stop for the evening and you turn on the opti idle, and most trucks like that have opti idle, you turn on the opti idle, then you go back there and you turn on your EPU on the wall and set the temperature and stuff like that. And then when the batteries get low, the truck turns on and it charges the batteries back up. That's the difference. That's the difference between an EPU and an APU. Two different things. They do the same thing. They serve the same purpose to a truck driver. Nothing bad on Alex, but I need to take that into consideration. Then you got these guys that have been around a while, and they'll try to recruit you. Lease drivers do it a lot for some reason. I'm not a big proponent of leases. Most of y'all know that. Not saying I'll never do one again. I'm just not a big proponent of them. I'm not someone that runs out here trying to push them, right? So, and a good example of that would be Britney Richardson, who was over at RTI. Now he's over at Artour. Well, when Britney was at RTI was the end-all be-all of leasing. It was great. It was awesome. There ain't no telling how many people Britney brought to RTI during her time there. Then just out of the blue, out of nowhere, RTI sucks. And then a week later, or 2 weeks later, however long it was, Artour is the end-all be-all of leases. And now there's probably a ton of people following Britney over there. Now, in my opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, was Britney being honest at RTI, or was there some kind of backroom deal? Personally, and I don't know this for certain, so I can't say it for fact, but I think there was a backroom deal. I don't think RTI was any different on the day that Britney left as it was the day that Britney arrived. And I've looked at RTI several times. You know, their lease hasn't changed. You know, they got a couple different options, but it's the same options that have always been there. The lease didn't change. The lease was the same. RTI used Britney until they no longer needed Britney anymore. They kicked Britney to the side. Britney used the viewership and the following until it was no good anymore, and then had to come up with an excuse and this and that. And Britney's pretty good at making drama out of nothing. So Britney pretty much made a drama, and she bounced. I think she went and did her own thing for a little while, and then she went to Artour. Now, there's a ton of drivers here that are on YouTube that worked at Artour. Trucker's Coach, Stewie, I think Cooper was over there, Lonnie. There's a bunch of them, right? And we already know the ins and outs of Artour, and we know it's not that great a lease. None of those guys that were over there are over there anymore. So again, I have to ask, is there some sort of backroom deal in there? Because Britney has a big channel. Very possible. Now, as a viewer, those are questions you need to be asking. Those are questions you should be asking yourself. You know, it's the same thing with GP Transco. They got Alex a trucker over there now. And Alex is really new to the industry. He's a good YouTuber, awesome YouTuber, but he's really new to the industry. And you got to remember, those same group of people that were at our tour were also at GP Transco. And ever since they left GP Transco, what, 2 years ago, something like that, none of them have ever returned to GP Transco. If GP Transco was as good as they were all saying it was when they were there, how come they never returned to GP Transco? You know, when I was at Crete, I told everybody Crete's a great company. I still stand beside that. I still say Crete's a good company. I kind of got stuck in a bind, and that's why I left. But it had nothing to do with the overall function of Crete. Crete is a pretty decent company. I wouldn't say they're the best, but they are a pretty good company. And compared to a lot of them, they're awesome. You know, same thing with where I work now. But when I was at Crete, I left for a little while. I went local, and I went and did a job at the house. I did an electrical job at the house. But any of y'all that were around back in those days watching me know that as soon as I got done with what I was doing, I went right back to Crete. That's what you do when you're working for a company that's decent, right? Back Father's Day, my mother passed away. Just before that, I'd gone home, kind of helped out, help her with what she needed in her last days, and I worked kind of semi-local doing oil field. Well, when that was over and I came back on the road, I came right back to where I was at, right? It's because it's a decent company. Those are things a person can look at. Like if those guys left GP to go try somewhere and then it didn't work out and you seen them go right back to GP, well, that might tell you that GP's probably pretty decent. But when you see the guys that were working there not returning when they're looking for a job, that tells you something, right? That kind of gives you a little bit of clue. Also, another thing you got to take into consideration, this is something I did years ago. Years ago, when I was working for US Express, I was in orientation and I was in Irving, Texas. And at the time, I was talking to a student that I had trained at Stevens Transport a few years earlier. I was talking to him on the phone and I was in orientation. And in orientation, you get, I call it the newlywed syndrome. You know, because when you're a newlywed, everything's great, right? You're getting laid 3 times a day. She never says no. She never has a headache. You're in love with each other. You're not getting on each other's nerves, right? Newlywed syndrome. Everything's gravy, baby, right? Well, it's kind of the same thing when you're going through orientation at a company. And a lot of times, and those of y'all that have been driving for a while are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of times, the way a company is portraying themselves in orientation and who they are once you get to working for them, 2 different things. So you'll be in orientation and it's like, oh man, this is great. This is freaking awesome. Well, that's what happened. I was in orientation and I was loving it. I was loving what I was hearing. I was loving the way everything was going. And I'm talking to this guy in the evenings after I get out of class, explaining to him how happy I am that I chose to come to US Express. Now, it was very short-lived. That honeymoon session ended within my first 2 weeks of being solo after orientation. But it was too late. The damage was already done because that student followed me. He followed me over there to US Express, and I felt horrible because by the time he got there, I was in my 2nd week, and I was at that point that I was realizing US Express was not what they portrayed themselves to be. And I apologized to him, and I tried to tell him while he was in orientation, hey man, just cut your losses. Don't come here, either go back to where you were at or try to go somewhere else, because this ain't it. And it was too late. He was already pretty dedicated to it. He was in orientation going through the honeymoon phase and decided he wanted to lease a truck. It ended up ruining a friendship because after that, me and him, we kind of got into it. He was upset, and we don't talk anymore. And that's that. And that's kind of my fault because I shouldn't have said anything until after I'd been there a little while. Now, I wasn't on YouTube yet. And when I started YouTube, I'd already been driving a while. So by the time I started YouTube, I already knew them kind of ins and outs. So if I change companies, I don't talk about how great it is until I'm pretty sure that that's what it is. Or how bad it is until I'm pretty sure that that's what it is, right? You know, I try to give it a little while, and not only that, but I always tell everybody to do their own research, talk to a bunch of drivers, don't just go on what I'm saying. But those are just some things to think about. Now to answer the question, can you trust a trucking YouTuber? Now, this ain't going to benefit me at all to say this, but y'all know I shoot it straight with y'all, just I always have when it comes to talking about these companies and my experience with these companies and different things like that. My answer is going to be no. Because you don't know if the company is influencing their videos, because that happens a lot out here. You don't know if maybe they're not making that much money there and they're trying to live off of bonuses and things like that. There's so many different questions. I would rather tell y'all no and y'all do y'all's own research than to tell y'all yes, you can trust a YouTube trucker and you follow somebody that's leading you wrong and put you in a bind. I've been driving a long time and I've been in a bind. I've been in a bind following drivers that told me something was what it wasn't because they needed a bonus. And it's not something that I want to do to anybody else. It's also one of the reasons that I tell people that are coming here, don't put me down. You don't have to put me down. I don't need it. I make decent money. It's for that, and it's because I don't want to feel like I'm using anybody. I just talk about where I work at. I talk about my experience where I work at. And your experience might be a little different. You might come and not like it at all, you may come and get into a bad truck and stay broke down. I mean, there's just no telling what your experience would be like. And I can't guarantee that it's going to be the same as mine, right? I just know what my experience has been like, and that's what I talk about. And then I try to put out whatever I've learned that's helped me to help some of y'all if y'all are thinking about coming here. But overall, in my opinion, no. Don't trust a YouTube trucker. Do your own research. Talk to a bunch of drivers. If you're thinking about going to one of these companies, let's say you're following Britney Richardson and you're thinking about going over to where Britney's at our tour. Stop our tour drivers in the truck stops and talk to them. And don't just talk to one or two of them. Talk to a bunch of them. Make sure those drivers are telling you things that are similar to what Britney's telling you. Or look for the comments. Because drivers will lie to you even at a truck stop. But look for the comments. If they're talking bad about it, look for the bad things they say that other drivers have said as well. If they're talking good about it, look for the good things they say that other drivers have said as well. If you find something that a whole bunch of drivers are saying, that's probably true, right? If you find something one driver said, no other driver confirmed it, then it's probably not true. Same thing if you're thinking about coming where I'm at. Get online. Look at reviews. Get on the different blogs. Look at reviews. Stop some of our drivers. Man, we exclusively fuel at Love's nationwide. You can probably find us in a Love's. Stop one of our drivers. Every time you see one, take a few months and take the time to do the research to make sure it's a company that's going to fit you. Rather than make a few dollars off of you, I would rather see you happy and content somewhere. It took me a long time to find happiness in trucking. My first few years out here was a nightmare. I made a lot of bad mistakes. I went to a lot of bad companies, but it was a learning process. And I try to pass that learning process on to y'all. Well, I know I've been kind of all over the place. I'm in my personal car down here in Arlington. I just picked up groceries. I'm headed back to the house, gonna do a little cooking. I think I'm gonna make burgers tonight, make some chili tomorrow night. Those of y'all that don't know, I love to cook. And then I'll be back to work later on this week, back out on the road. I hope y'all had a great Thanksgiving. I appreciate all of y'all for stopping by. I hope this doesn't discourage you, because I'm not trying to discourage you from watching us here on YouTube. That's not it at all. I just want y'all not to get hurt in the process and make sure you're making decisions that are best for you and your family. I appreciate y'all for stopping by. Stop by anytime. Drop down in the comments if you got something you want to say, if you got an opinion about the video or an opinion on following some of these YouTube truckers. Drop down there and give me your opinion on that. I appreciate y'all. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Let's keep trucking.
Please call the medic. This beat came to me on a stretcher. In the lab, I step to the mic and feel like I'm Dexter. I'm a man, dark world, but I'm still shining like treasure. Yeah, I got joy like ha ha ha. Wait, and I can't wear smiles, that's fake. Then I'm between love and strong. Hate clock says no time for mistakes. Ring the alarm, sirens go off, but I'm calm. My life resides in his palm. Submit to my pops, respect for my mom. Honor them both, so my life will be long. Third time is the charm of the third strike.